The Broncos didn't just miss a few picks in this draft, they watched elite talent vanish right in front of them while doing nothing. No early moves, no aggressive trades, and now one decision is already haunting fans because the Chargers may have walked away with the player Denver needed most. But what really defines this draft isn't who the Broncos picked, it's who they let everyone else take. The Broncos didn't just have a quiet draft, they had one of those weekends where every pick they didn't make started to echo louder than the ones they did. While other teams were moving up, locking in impact starters and reshaping their future in real time, Denver stayed put and watched elite talent disappear one name at a time. By the time they finally got on the board didn't look the same anymore. Players they were linked to were gone, defensive upgrades were gone, game-changing secondary help, gone. And then came the moment that hit fans the hardest, the Chargers stepping in and drafting Genesis Smith, a player many in Denver believed could have been the missing piece in their secondary for years to come. That's where the frustration really started, not just because of who was taken, but because of how preventable it all felt. No aggressive trade-up, no early statement, just patience, maybe too much of it. And now the question hanging over this entire draft isn't what the Broncos got, it's what they watched slip away while they waited for their turn. Because once you see how the board fell apart in real time, it changes everything you think you know about this draft. This is where the Broncos draft suddenly shifts from frustration to something fans didn't expect, hope. Because while everything around Denver's draft felt slow, cautious, even passive, their third-round pick at running back told a completely different story. Jonah Coleman wasn't just another name on the board. He was one of those players teams quietly fall in love with during the process, long before the cameras ever show up on draft night. The Broncos didn't just draft him, they wanted him. Weeks before the selection, Coleman himself called his visit to Denver the highlight of his entire draft journey. That detail matters because it shows this wasn't a random swing. This was targeted, intentional, personal. And when you look at the player, it starts to make sense. A back who doesn't just run through gaps but finishes runs through contact. A player who doesn't just survive pass protection, he thrives in it. That's rare for rookies, even rarer for rookies Denver desperately needs right now. But what really changes the tone here is this. Coleman doesn't project like a future piece. He projects like someone who could step in immediately and reshape how this offense survives downs and distances. And that's when everything about this pick starts to feel different. Because once you understand what Coleman actually brings to this offense, you start to wonder if Denver's entire draft identity just changed with one selection. This is where the Broncos draft stops feeling safe and starts feeling like a gamble that could define everything. Because Tyler Onyedem isn't the kind of pick that sells jerseys or headlines on draft night. He's the kind of player you only fully understand after watching the tape, then rewatching it, trying to figure out if the upside outweighs the inconsistencies. At 6'3", nearly 300 pounds, he looks the part of an interior disruptor. There are flashes where he explodes off the line like he's shot out of a cannon, collapsing pockets and forcing quarterbacks into panicked decisions. That's the version of Onyedem that made the Broncos stop and pay attention. But then there's the other side. The moments where he gets neutralized in the run game, where power linemen move him off his spot, where the dominance disappears just long enough to raise questions scouts don't always say out loud. And that's the real tension here. Denver didn't draft a finished product. They drafted traits, tools, projection. A player who could become a rotational weapon or get stuck in that in-between zone where almost turns into never quite. But in Denver's eyes, that risk is worth it. Because if Onyedem hits, it changes their entire defensive interior rotation overnight. But the real question isn't whether he has talent, it's whether Denver can actually unlock it before the doubts catch up. This is the kind of pick that doesn't shake the NFL, but quietly tells you exactly what kind of team the Broncos are trying to become. Justin Jolly isn't flashy. He's not the tight end that lights up highlight reels with one-handed grabs or viral athletic testing numbers. In fact, on paper, he's almost the opposite of what modern fans expect from the position. Average testing, modest athletic profile, nothing that screams future superstar. But Denver didn't draft him for noise, they drafted him for stability. Because when you dig into his production, the story shifts fast. Over 1,000 combined yards in his last 2 seasons, 7 touchdowns in a single year, nearly 50 games played in college without disappearing from the lineup. That matters more than people admit, especially for a Broncos team that has lived through constant inconsistency at tight end. And then there's the reliability factor. 1 drop on 69 targets, that's not luck, that's trustworthiness. That's a quarterback-friendly safety valve who shows up exactly where he's supposed to down after down. He's not being brought in to replace stars, he's being brought in to make the offense function when things break down, to block when needed, to catch when necessary, to survive when chaos hits. And in a system that values discipline over flash, that might be exactly why he fits. Because sometimes the safest pick isn't the most exciting one, but it's the one that quietly holds everything together when the spotlight moves on. This is where the conversation shifts from players to something much bigger and a lot more uncomfortable. Because this draft isn't just about who the Broncos selected, it's about how they approached the entire weekend. No urgency, no bold trades, no aggressive push up the board when impact talent was still within reach. Just patience and a belief that their system will eventually make it all work. And that's exactly where the divide begins. On one side, you have the believers, the ones who trust Sean Payton and the front office to develop mid-round talent the right way. They'll point to past hits, players who weren't stars on draft night but became key contributors over time. They see this as calculated, disciplined team building. But on the other side, there's growing frustration. Because in a division getting more aggressive every year, playing it safe can start to look a lot like falling behind. While rivals take risks and chase upside, Denver is doubling down on control, structure, and long-term development. And that raises a question nobody in the building will say out loud. Is this patience or hesitation disguised as a plan? Because if this philosophy doesn't start producing real impact soon, it won't be called discipline anymore, it'll be called a missed window. And this is where everything comes full circle, because no matter how you break down the picks, no matter how much upside you see in the roster additions, there's one question that refuses to go away. Did the Broncos just outsmart everyone, or did they overthink the moment? Because while Denver stayed patient, other teams didn't hesitate. The Los Angeles Chargers made their move, and in doing so may have landed a player Broncos fans are already imagining in their own defense. Genesis Smith wasn't just another pick. For many, he was the missing piece, the kind of defensive back who could have elevated an already strong secondary into something elite. Now that possibility is gone, and it's not just about one player, it's about what he represents. Aggression, timing, decisiveness, 3 things Denver chose not to show when it mattered most. At the same time, there's still a path where this all works out. If Jonah Coleman becomes a day-one impact back, if Tyler Oniedem develops into a disruptive force, if Justin Jolly becomes a reliable weapon, then suddenly this draft looks completely different. But that's a lot of ifs. And until those answers show up on the field, this draft will live in that dangerous space between vision and regret.